Hello, church. Well, it's been a couple weeks since the last video update I've done. I have something that I'd like for you to do in anticipation of when we can gather together again at the building. But before we get to that, I first want to take a moment to briefly encourage you from Psalm 3. So Psalm 3 is where David is surrounded by a growing enemy, and it's threatening him physically and spiritually. It wants to destroy him, but not after first demoralizing him. And this is the underlying taunt of every trial that we face. Don't expect God to deliver you, right? As Christians, we usually don't doubt God's power to deliver us. We know nothing is too difficult for God. What we tend to doubt, though, is his willingness. We so easily put the words into God's mouth, right? I've had enough of your unfaithfulness. You have sinned one too many times. No more rescues for you until you learn to obey. Right? The trial is bad enough, but our condemning doubts, they cause us to hang our heads, and our tears mingle together with our shame. But in verse 3 of Psalm 3, David counters these taunts with truth. He says this, "But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the one who lifts my head." God's love for David has never been based on his performance. It's anchored in promise. Like God's previous covenants with Abraham and Moses, his covenant with David was unconditional. David's failures would not change God's promise that a son of David would rule over an everlasting kingdom. God told the prophet Nathan, "My loving kindness shall not depart from him." So armed with this truth, David rejects the lies that so easily rise from within, and he chooses to trust his God. As great as the enemy may be, he knows God is greater. And this leads David to describe God as he does in verse 3 as his safety, his glory, and his joy. So when trials come, Christian, and the doubts about God's love for you arise within, we need to counter with truth and trust in God. His love for you has never been rooted in your performance. And like David, God's love is anchored in promise. We see the promise in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 4 and 5. It says there that God chose us in him before the foundation of the world, so that we would be holy and blameless before him. In love, he predestined us to adoption as sons through Jesus Christ to himself. In Galatians 3, verse 29, Paul wrote, "If you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to promise." See, all the promises of God for the good of his people focus in Jesus Christ. He confirms them and secures them, and as it were, he purchases them for all who belong to him, to all who believe. And so, in the midst of the trial that's testing you physically and spiritually, counter the spiritual taunts with these glorious truths. First, Christ is your safety. You can be confident that nothing can touch you except that which your heavenly Father chooses to permit for your good. He secures you on all sides. He's in complete control over your circumstances and every person involved. He will provide you the grace that you need to persevere through what is difficult and even painful, so that your life becomes a testimony to his power. Christ is your glory, right? There's a present glory in your afflictions, for through our affliction comes the opportunity to know Christ and his power in ways that you wouldn't otherwise. Christ is also our future hope of glory. Christ has opened for us the way to God so that we can share in the glory of God. And because of Christ, these momentary light afflictions, they'll be eclipsed by a future glory so great that it can't even be described. And you need to know this so that you won't lose heart. And then thirdly, Christ is your joy. There is sorrow in this life. Christ himself was a man of sorrow, and he was humbled in death. But God raised him up. He exalted him. He gave him the name which is above every name, and all authority in heaven and on earth. And though our heads may hang down in sadness at times, he will lift it up again. And very soon, Jesus will not only wipe away every tear, but every reason for sorrow. And then our hearts will rejoice. They'll rejoice forever in our salvation. And so when affliction comes and you feel surrounded, as it were, by enemies, remember, Christian, that you're not alone. Christ is with you. He will never forsake you. And in the midst of the trial, remember what is true. Christ is your safety at all times, your present and future glory, and your everlasting joy. Well, I hope that encourages you. I wanted to let you know about something that the elders have put together. In order to help us to prepare for when we can gather again at the building, we've put together a brief survey. This survey is going to give us an idea of your thoughts on meeting physically again, and what are the things that you're looking to be in place to help promote everyone's safety. So this survey is going to be put out there on Slack. It's anonymous, and the results hopefully will help us to do the best we can in our task for caring for you. So I hope you'll take this survey, that you'll participate, and I hope you'll continue to trust in the Lord through whatever trials He may be bringing into your life. God has been very good to us, church. Hope you're encouraged today. I can't wait until the Lord brings us back together again. The Lord bless you.